everyone, and welcome to the PropCast. My name is Louisa Dickens, co-founder of LMR Re and board director of the UKPA, and I shall be your weekly host. Each week for 30 minutes, we'll be connecting the VCs, PropTech startups, and real estate professionals globally, and assist in bridging that famous communication gap we all love talking about. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the PropCast Season 2. On today's episode, we'll be interviewing John Fitzpatrick, otherwise known as Fitz, the Managing Director and Global Chief Technology Officer of Blackstone Real Estate, and Mike Sroka, the co-founder and CEO of DealPath, the leading deal management platform for the real estate industry. So welcome, Mike and Fitz.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure, guys. On today's podcast, we'll explore how PropTech can enhance deal and investments within sort of real estate. And we thought, what better than to interview Mike and Fitz together. So I guess before we start, I'll give a brief introduction. So obviously, John is the Managing Director and Global Chief Technology Officer of Blackstone Real Estate within Technology and Innovations Group. Now, I'm sure everyone listening has heard of Blackstone, but on the unlikely event you have not, Blackstone is one of the world's leading investment firms with something like, this might not be entirely up to date, but it's $564 billion worth of assets under management. Now, John is responsible for all aspects of technology across Blackstone Real Estate and their portfolio companies, and also oversees the Blackstone Innovations Investment Program, which seeks to unlock value for Blackstone's LPs and the firm by taking stakes in targeted, early-stage, technology-based investment opportunities. Prior to this, John oversaw various initiatives across the entire Technology and Innovations Group. Before joining Blackstone in 2011, John worked at Capital IQ for 7 years, where he was most recently the head of product. Now, he's received a BS in finance from St. John's University and currently serves on the Blackstone Charitable Foundation's Leadership Council. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, John. Now for Mike. Mike is the founder of DealPath. Now, DealPath is the real estate industry's leading cloud-based deal management platform. Investment and development firms leverage DealPath as their command center for smart pipeline tracking, powerful deal analytics, and collaborative workflows. Mike founded DealPath in 2014 and since then has supported over $5 trillion worth in transactions with leading institutions across the world, which we will hear more about later on in the podcast. Now, prior to DealPath, Mike spent over a decade growing venture-backed software companies, including Fanhood and One Season and sort of many more. He started his career at Hudson Advisor, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, as a managing agent for Lone Star Funds, and he graduated from Southern Methodist University with BS in economics with finance applications. Now, he's also a member of the Urban Land Institute, the ICSC, and the Forbes Real Estate Council, among others, and lives in the Bay Area with his wife and 2 kids. So that was a brief sort of sum up. But John and Mike, without further ado, I would love to, I guess, hear how you first crossed paths. I don't know, Fitz, you want to sort of kickstart that?
Sure. And again, thank you for having me on the podcast today. So how did Mike and I first cross paths? Well, a couple of ways. Initially, Mike reached out to us, as a lot of PropTech vendors do, understanding the size and scale of Blackstone and how his product could be applicable to us. So initially, we found it interesting. We have a strategy at Blackstone to try to digitize all of our processes, and a tool like DealPath was quite intriguing. However, we had other initiatives at the time. Concurrent there, our portfolio companies, namely companies like Link, our industrial platform, Equity Office, our office platform, started asking as well to use a tool like DealPath to more effectively manage their deal flow, because there was a general void in the industry. Typically how it would work was you'd either have a homegrown solution, use a vendor product, i.e. Salesforce or the likes, to track this. And just given some of the uniqueness of real estate, none of them were really able to fully solve those use cases. So as deal flow continued to rise, the necessity to communicate more effectively, to keep everybody in the loop, so to speak, to tie to central systems, those platforms began to continually demand a tool like DealPath and started using it. And then from the Blackstone perspective, we took notice in terms of the efficiencies that they were gaining by using this particular software. And really, outside of, maybe of a tool like VTS of a few years back, the overwhelming demand from our portfolio to use a tool that, gained, tremendous efficiency and really helped their workflow really caught our attention at the Blackstone level. And then we started digging in to use it for our own use cases and use it as a connectivity point to our portfolio companies to drive further efficiency in some of the manual processes. So apologies for the long-winded answer there, but it certainly kind of came from multiple angles, and the demand from our business folks, so to speak, and their positive commentary in terms of the effectiveness of the software really kind of caused us to take a deeper dive on the software and basically bump it up the priority list. Yeah, well, it's fantastic. I guess you've become both a client and a strategic investor in DealPath. Mike, I guess from your side, tell us a little bit about, how did DealPath sort of first begin? What's the whole story behind it?
Yeah, it's been a long time in the making. We are very proud and excited today to be the #1 deal management platform for real estate investment management. We started the company in early 2014. And long before that, I had started my career in real estate finance. And it was really former colleagues and friends that I would credit with being persistent in describing the challenges that they were having and requesting better tools that really led us to the opportunity. We officially started the company in March 2014 and have been methodically building out the platform since then. Maybe just kind of echoing Fitz, when we started DealPath, we viewed Blackstone as the largest, most sophisticated real estate investment manager in the world, and kind of the aspirational client where we could have the biggest impact on investments in the built world. And over the past years, as Fitz had described, started meeting with the Blackstone teams and started growing our product capabilities and our customer base, and have really built out quite a bit from where we started. And that being said, it's still very early innings. So, when I think of the path ahead, there is so much more work to be done, and we couldn't be more excited for that.
Yeah, Mike, you definitely have some pretty impressive clients from obviously Blackstone, AEW, Oxford Properties, which a lot of PropTechs or general businesses would sort of dream of having. How have you gone about sort of winning these clients? Are there any sort of obstacles that you faced when you, I guess, first sort of started?
It's been step by step, and I don't think that there's been, a silver bullet or a single moment, but I think just consistently working hard on listening to clients' needs and building out our solutions for them and earning the business and trust of larger and larger clients. And today, I guess, 6.5 years after we started, we've made tremendous progress. We also, feel like there's so much more to do. So I think we are really proud of the clients that we support today. And, Fitz can describe how we're working with his teams, but a big part of it, I think, is really, us listening closely to those clients and understanding, their businesses and their needs, and as thoughtfully as we can, prioritizing our product roadmap to build out solutions that'll have the biggest positive impact on their businesses.
Yeah, and I guess you cover three sort of main areas from what I understand: deploying capital in the acquisition, development, and the financing of real estate property. Is there any? Could you sort of expand on sort of these, and I guess talk us through, how DealPath can add value to real estate investment funds?
Yeah, so we are really focused. We are purpose-built for real estate investment management. All of our clients are deploying capital in the acquisition, development, and financing of real estate assets. And DealPath is really the command center for their front office to focus on value at work, to identify and mitigate risks, and to deliver optimal risk-adjusted returns. I always think of us as kind of like pipeline through portfolio management, and really managing that life cycle of an asset. And we've got lots more work to do in the capabilities that we can support there, but see this as such a important need in the market and a big opportunity.
And I guess, John, do you have, if we're talking about sort of market opportunities, can you maybe share a little bit about, I guess, your own vision and sort of the potential opportunities you see for DealPath and, God, the 3, 5, 10 years ahead?
Sure. Let me share a little bit, but I told Mike I won't share too much because every time Michael gets a call from me about new enhancements, I probably the product team bonkers a little bit. But no, I think a couple of things, and maybe just to touch on a few points that Michael made as well too. I mean, like given the current state that we're in now globally, the kind of acceleration, I think, by the most sophisticated managers to digitization of all these particular processes is just a huge tailwind for solutions like DealPath. And I think what you're seeing, broadly speaking, in the PropTech space is kind of a flushing out of like the true solutions versus the pretenders. And when you think of a solution like DealPath, a couple of points that I'd like to comment on is that, they're a critical component of a larger technical ecosystem of most shops, right? Whether it's the pipeline management, the capital management, the disposition tracking, things of that nature, they do that very well. However, for them to really work, and why we were so excited about DealPath, is really the technical underpinning behind the solution to allow it to tie to other systems, whether it's a property management system, a ledger system, a valuation system, and seamlessly kind of tying these components together, I think is crucial for us, because at the end of the day, how we think about it at Blackstone is, investing is a game of connecting the dots, and whoever can connect the dots and tell the best picture and have that information advantage, typically wins. And DealPath was really, brought into Blackstone, our portfolio companies, to connect some manual processes that we had to allow us to make, more timely decisions, to track historical content, and to improve some of the workflow as it relates to going into deals. So when we think about future enhancements to the DealPath product, and probably one of the main premises of why we made the strategic investment to help direct the product team there, is like they're all kind of centered around that. And when you think of a deal management platform, and you look at the other providers in the space, it's who really has the enterprise grade level functionality and capability, right? So when you take a quite sophisticated manager like ourselves, and you think of things like MAR and be able to segment MAR, or things of currency conversion for a multi national global corporation like ourselves, that's where they really start to differentiate. And then again, the technical sophistication that we have at Blackstone, where we want solutions that tie and talk to each other and really kind of plug into an overall ecosystem into our larger data efforts, is just crucial. And I think that's where you're going to see more in the future as it relates to DealPath, in the sense of building better tools on top of their core, further integration points with, call it core systems and solutions that managers use. Maybe I'll pause there. I'll let Michael talk any further to product roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with what Fitz is describing, is that, we see this need for a modern real estate tech stack, which is to be able to connect the tools and systems and people across an organization to get the full value. And DealPath was built from the ground up as an open system designed for interoperability with those other tools, and having a third-party API and developer portal and supporting ETL and having built-in integrations are examples of some of the ways that we can facilitate that. But there is still so much work to be done by DealPath and by the industry to remove the friction of allowing the data of these firms to flow seamlessly to the different departments and personnel that need to have access to it. And so when we look ahead, that is where a lot of our product roadmap is centered, is really, deepening the workflows and integrations that bring that value to life or unlock that value.
And I guess if we're sort of looking at value, it's since like 2014 you launched. Is there a particular sort of success story or I guess part of your product that you developed, which is, was almost like a game changer or something which the real estate investment industry seem to be demanding most? Is there anything that sticks out for you, Mike?
This is maybe less exciting. It's been this, I think, constant effort to try to minimize variables and, solve for one thing at a time while keeping, an eye on kind of the bigger solution and big picture. And, when we first started the company and had, very little product built out, we were, I would say, maniacally focused on, a very small set of use cases. And initially, DealPath was designed to support the acquisition of a single tenant net lease retail property. And as we built our confidence in our ability to support that, we expanded into doing, multi-tenant retail and portfolios of retail and expanding into other property types to do office and industrial and multifamily. And then not just the acquisition, but the ongoing development of projects and the financing of those acquisitions and developments. And then starting to really focus on broadening to be able to connect and to support more portfolio management use cases. And when we, look back, we've got this solution that we're really excited about those capabilities, but it wasn't necessarily, one killer app, one special feature, or one thing that made it happen. I think that it's been, just the constant listening and focus and retooling, and oh, by the way, need to continue that discipline because again, it's early innings for the value that can be created here.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot of hard work, time, and I guess a good team sort of supporting you, but also, I guess, uptake in the industry as well. I feel like we're definitely making movements. But I guess if we're focusing on, where we're at in the industry and uptake in technology or say digitalization, John, where do you see real estate on its path to digitalization? You work for, Blackstone. Do we have a long way to go? Are you seeing more uptake and everyone's saying COVID, pushed it forward? Do you see that pattern?
Well, I think broadly speaking, real estate in general, as it relates to technology, is always, a little bit behind some other, financial asset classes. As it relates to COVID, I think, certain real estate managers and participants in the industry, given the force function that COVID has created, have been way more amenable to trying and using new technologies, either, quote unquote, prop technologies or tangential technologies to make themselves more efficient. And I think a lot of that is, out of necessity, right? Just given the current state we're in. And I guess what I'm seeing from my vantage point, to the point I think you were making at the beginning of the question as it relates to real estate technology, you're really starting to see a little bit of a convergence from like the pretenders to the real value add solutions. And I think, to the points that Michael was making just before, it's like, it's just solving one little component isn't going to do the trick. You have to really show the value add of your solution, because what I've seen with COVID and at certain shops where budgets are constricting is folks going back to, call it, the core real estate technology platforms. However, the PropTech companies and the ones that complement those solutions or solve use cases that those solutions don't solve at all or don't solve well are seeing a huge uptick in traction as well. And I think that's really what's going to define the industry on the forward, right? Like, there really is no great one-size-fits-all solution to solve real estate. It's a combination of a few solutions. And I think what I'm seeing both at the Blackstone level, but even more broadly across the industry, is everybody's looking for the best of breed in the 4 or 5 key areas, right, as it relates to technical solutions to drive efficiency, because these solutions do drive a tremendous amount of efficiency. They lower costs and they allow you to be more productive. And with, call it the quote unquote digital transformation of a lot of industries, real estate being one, I think the appetite and the desire to digitize more and be more effective with the tools that are available is just a huge tailwind for solutions like DealPath on the forward.
I guess we're looking sort of outside DealPath. Is there any areas of real estate where there's a need of a product which maybe Blackstone's sort of looking for, or, where do we need some development?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I mean, like what we do at Blackstone, we have, various committees where we're looking at PropTech and looking at areas where we feel like, technical solutions are underdeveloped or lacking right there. And, a few years back, we were looking at deal and pipeline management. That's how we identified a tool like DealPath. Right now, I'd say some areas, just to give you a couple, are probably around leasing and virtual leasing. There's some solutions there, but I think that's an area where we're excited to hopefully see some development with the PropTech companies on the forward. The other thing on the PropTech, I'd say where we're seeing a lot of pretty interesting developments is around security, whether it's, advances in camera systems and software that plugs into that and things of that nature. It's quite interesting. And then lastly, on the asset management side is definitely some interesting tools out there that are making asset managers, property managers more effective, and really kind of pushing some of the legacy way of thinking, which we think is quite interesting.
And Mike, going back to what we were sort of talking about before, to do with, I guess, uptake in other businesses of your product, or maybe taking a pilot on to actually using it. How have you sort of found it? What are you sort of expecting over the next sort of few years, in this sort of new norm for your business?
I guess, I would say that from our perspective, and I think Fitz actually has the best pattern recognition here. But what we've observed is that, over the past 4, 5, 6 years, there's been a huge surge of investment and development in real estate software services. And, some of those new tools and solutions are starting to get traction. However, we still haven't hit kind of the full adoption wave. And I think we saw last year maybe the first tipping points where maybe we crossed the chasm from early adopters to early majority. But we still haven't gone from early majority to mass market adoption of these new tools and solutions, which are continuing to build out and mature. And that's probably the single most important thing for everyone in the market, whether you're a real estate operator or a service provider. That is the big moment of value creation. That's kind of, the official digital transformation of real estate as the largest asset class in the world. Very, very exciting stuff that's happening. It's something that we're keen to position ourselves for. The environment over the past, 5 or 6 months has changed a lot of people's work and, their priorities. In many ways, I think is actually a bit of a catalyst for this digital transformation of real estate, and is putting a spotlight on pain points that people had before and now simply, can't work without new solutions. And so we're seeing kind of this acceleration in the adoption wave, and from DealPath's kind of focus. Every portfolio manager in the world right now is trying to understand the impact and performance of their owned portfolio. They're trying to evaluate repositions or opportunistic investments. That really aligns very closely with the services that we provide. Having centralized data that is globally accessible has never been more important. Every investment committee is coming together remotely each week trying to understand how to make these investment decisions. Having standardized workflows that enable your team to work effectively from wherever they might be working is a requirement to get things done right now. And having, really, really strong enterprise grade data security, as all of this proprietary information is being housed in these new cloud services, also critical for the market. So, while these are challenging times and it's changing quickly, I think that there are some positive aspects that we see and want to leverage fully. We see the future of real estate investment management is really being more programmatic portfolio management and transaction execution. But it's going to take a lot of work to get there. The first steps are how do we organize and structure all of the data that these firms have, visualize it so they can be more data-driven in their decision-making and start automating the steps along the way. And that's really what we're marching towards, with the aim of DealPath being where the built world transacts and being that center of real estate investment and capital markets in the age of intelligent software.
Well, I guess my next question I was going to go to where do you sort of see DealPath in the next few years? But you sort of answered that. But there's another question which I get asked a lot. So I help out companies launch in cities. So obviously the US, massive. You have launched, obviously you started in San Francisco. You then also launched in New York. A lot of people wondering, I guess it's a fairly big question, but how do the two markets compare? Is there a stark sort of difference in, say, uptake or what requirements of clients? Or I guess how did you find the two launches?
I guess the way that we think about it is that, real estate is a local business and institutional capital is global. And from the beginning of creating DealPath, I think that, an assumption of ours is that this is a global business of real estate investment management, and that we need to build out a solution that works well for that dynamic asset class. Today, we support hundreds of top firms across geographies. From a practical standpoint, our initial go-to-market efforts have been in North America. So the majority of our clients are headquartered in North America. We do have clients based in many other geographies, and I think, see huge need and opportunity to continue building out our go-to-market efforts and product capabilities to do a great job solving for this global asset class. Yeah,
well, I'm personally very excited to see what happens. I always ask the question at the end of the show, where do you see PropTech and 5 years down the road? But I think no one knows at this point. But it sounds like DealPath is doing a great job, and I guess I wish you sort of the best. And I'm excited to where when we can all sort of meet up, and whether it's sort of Europe or sort of back over in the States. I guess we're coming to the end of the show, but what I would love to hear, so both of you, so say Mike, if you weren't in PropTech, if you weren't in software, is there any, off the topic, any sort of career you would like to pursue or you might pursue in the future?
Something that we talk about as a team is that if it was the year 1800 and you weren't in London, you weren't in it. And if it was the year 1900 and you weren't in New York City, you weren't in it. And if it's 2020 and you're not in PropTech or real estate software services, you're not in it. So I can't think of any place else that we'd want to be. This is where we want to be.
Yeah. Fitz, what about you?
Yeah, I guess similar. Well, it's funny. I always ask that question. That's why one of my most popular interview questions. I think it was even a question I asked of Michael when we had met early days is, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would your dream job? Yeah. So mine right there would be running a Formula One race team, because I love the mixture of competition and technology. But I would fully echo Mike's points. I think the reason that we're both in these particular industries and doing what we're doing, and just like looking at my career, previously at Capital IQ and how we wanted to digitize how investment banking worked, and I think we were relatively successful there. And now at Blackstone, kind of taking a behemoth of an industry like real estate and digitizing that and using data to help make more, better investments and more informed decisions, and arguably one of the largest financial asset class, I think is just interesting, right? And to Michael's point, we're still in the early innings as this goes. I think some of the earlier comments in terms of some of the PropTech companies are interesting. Some are, just kind of shots in the dark, and really be able to kind of wean through kind of the pretenders versus the real game changers and come up with solutions to really drive the industry. And, when we look back in 5 years or 10 years and say, hey, listen, we made these particular bets and we helped kind of change how the industry does business, I think it's a really, really rewarding position to be in from a career perspective, knowing that, you were on kind of the forefront of driving that.
Yeah, it will. Let's wait and sort of see what happens in the next sort of 5-10 years. I think, well, I guess what Michael Beckerman spoke about in his last sort of 4-day conference about reimagining real estate, like no one has any idea what it's going to be like, how buildings will operate in sort of 2 to 5 to 10 years time, which is, it's really exciting. So, I completely agree with you. We're all in the right place. And I guess here to sort of more innovation. Now, it's unfortunately coming to the end of the show. Now, before we go, Mike and John, if you could please share with the audience any sort of, I guess, parting bit of information or advice, and also, I guess, let them know the best way to sort of connect with you. Mike, would you like to sort of go first?
Sure. I don't know about the advice side, but I would say that, if there's interest in learning more about DealPath, our website, DealPath.com, has a lot of great content on it and a number of ways to contact different parts of our organization. And we would love to hear from you and are excited about potential opportunities with new clients and new partners. So DealPath.com is the best place to reach us.
Sure. And I guess from my side, for either the fellow CTOs in the real estate sector or CEOs, when you're looking at tools like DealPath or even tangential tools, I think you need to do two pieces of advice. One is really have a wholesome vision for your overall technical ecosystem. So then when you're looking at these particular tools, you're thoughtful in terms of how you're going to plug them all together and get the maximum value in terms of efficiency, in terms of data capture, et cetera, and really think of it holistically. Don't just jump into point solutions. And then two, and probably one of the things that attracted us to DealPath the most, and just, from my vantage point, where PropTech companies fail and where they succeed is really looking for companies that have two components, right? One, have really good technology. And this is sort of to your California to New York question. Some have really good technology, but have a very limited understanding of real estate. Others have a really strong understanding of real estate and poor technology. So I think when you see these solutions that really have both of those, which are far and few, to be totally honest with you, those are really the ones that are quite successful because they're truly solving a business problem and doing it in a technical way that will allow them to scale for the future. And that was, again, something that heavily attracted us to DealPath and some of the other investments that we've made to date. That's probably the thing that I would just kind of tell everybody to look out for.
Sure. And I guess for people, how can they connect with you, Fitz, or I guess Blackstone?
Sure. I mean, feel free to, reach out to me either via email, via LinkedIn. Be more than happy to help answer questions. It's a small industry and I think everybody's pretty cordial amongst themselves. So feel free if you have any questions. I have no problem with anybody ever reaching out to me.
Awesome. Okay, bro. Well, look, Mike and Fitz, thank you so much for coming on the Propcast. Everyone, I'll be sharing how you can get in touch with them as well and the links to their websites. But thank you and catch up with you guys soon.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Propcast, and a big thanks to our special guests. Make sure you visit our website, www.lmre.co.uk, where you can subscribe to our show, or you'll find us on iTunes and Spotify, where all good content is found. Whilst you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate if you could rate and review us on iTunes, or if you simply just spread the word. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday, and I'll catch you later.
You're listening to a Podcast Company podcast. This was made by Podcast Syndicator, where we help you go from start to grow to making money with your podcast. Let us help you share your message and your voice with the world. Reach out now, Jason at podcastsyndicator.com or Brett at podcastsyndicator.com to find out more. Thank you for listening, and do come back to hear nothing but the best podcasts.